Good morning to all, or afternoon to some. This is the webinar, Moving from Manager to Leader, How to Be a Better Manager and Leader. So you're here today for a specific reason. There's something that caught your eye when you saw the ad for this or the email. You're probably here because you're seeking to enhance your leadership skills, maybe significantly impact your team and organization. Well, this webinar today is designed specifically for that very purpose. Transitioning from a manager to a leader requires a mindset approach and a completely different set of skills. And those set of skills are sometimes very elusive. It's hard to get a handle on what those are. In today's webinar, we're going to explore the key attributes and the strategies that distinguish exceptional leaders from just average managers. I'm going to share practical insights, actionable steps that will elevate your leadership capabilities and inspire your team to achieve extraordinary results. And I don't say that lightly. Now, I also want to be transparent. Today, for many, will be a first step of their journey to improve leadership skills. But I must warn you, you will not be a great leader by the end of this. Leadership development requires a long journey, often a lifetime. You can't learn to be an effective leader overnight. You can't treat it like a car wash. You drive in, you drive out, you're clean. It's not how it works. It's a long, tough road. You're here for a reason. I applaud you for being here as you're looking for a resource to give you some direction and inspiration and what steps you need to be taking to get your journey going. And so today will hopefully set you up with a better direction for you to prioritize your future steps. And hold on. To prioritize your future steps and your future professional development. Let's start. Let's start by understanding the difference between management and leadership. In today's business world, it's crucial to recognize the fundamental distinction between management and leadership. While the term manager and leader are often used interchangeably, they encompass distinct responsibilities and approaches unique to themselves. Management, or a manager, primarily involves overseeing day-to-day operations, ensuring tasks are executed efficiently, maintaining organizational processes, that sort of thing. On the other hand, leadership focuses on inspiring and guiding a team towards a shared vision and driving. Let me get these folks in here. A lot of late joiners today. Sorry about that. Leadership, on the other hand, focuses on inspiring and guiding towards a shared vision, driving innovation, and fostering very often a culture of growth and development. We're going to focus a lot on that part of it is culture, growth, and development. That's a big part of your leadership toolbox that you need to be very good at. So during this segment of the webinar, we're going to delve into the core differences between management and leadership roles and give you some clarity on the unique aspects of each so we unblur any lines that might be there for you. By understanding the distinctions, you'll be able to identify which aspects of your role require a managerial approach, which is absolutely essential, and where there's a leadership quality that can be leveraged to drive change and improvement, achieving goals, etc., within your organization. A manager is an individual assigned to a specific formal position or role within an organization, and they're responsible for overseeing day-to-day operations, allocating resources, ensuring that tasks are completed efficiently. And a leader, on the other hand, is an individual who inspires, guides, motivates others towards a shared vision, a shared goal. Leadership's not tied to a formal position or a title. It can be exhibited at any level. You may have a direct report that shows leadership skills. It can show up at any level within the organization. So in short, they create the relationship where a leader creates the relationship where your team wants to get the job done. Managers tell them what to do. Leaders drive the culture for which they want to get the job done. Not that they have to do it, that they want to do it. That's the inspirational and the motivational part of it. And I must stress, and I say this in a lot of these webinars and in my podcast, in my blogs, command and control, which is the general go-to approach for managers. And it's because managers, frankly, often don't know any better. They've got this set of skills, and that's what they use. Today is about offering you a new set of skills, a new approach, a new way of approaching success with your career, your team, your company. And again, command and control does not work. It didn't work in the 70s. It didn't work in the 80s. It didn't work in the 90s. And it especially doesn't work today. And if you're only using one management approach, which is telling people what to do, your team may be getting things done, but it comes with a lack of heart and commitment. And therein lies where the byproduct of inadequate leadership displays itself. And I'm going to talk about that more later. Leaders focus on setting a compelling vision, aligning team members around it, and inspiring them to work collaboratively towards that achievement. They lead by example, they display integrity, they show empathy, and most importantly, they show authenticity. And all of that fosters trust and respect among everyone who's working with them. Leaders need to be forward-thinking, adaptable. They need to be able to embrace change and innovation. They need to navigate challenges, seize opportunities. They need to be proactive. Leaders nurture a positive organizational culture. With that kind of culture, that promotes growth. It creates development opportunities for all the individuals on your team if they want it. Keep that in mind. Really good leaders recognize that fostering this positive culture, once they start seeing the remnants, they start seeing the display of this, they understand how essential it is to their team's success and their own success. So they start realizing that instead of dictating tasks, as you enhance your leadership skills, you're able to motivate each team member's heart and mind and get their full commitment to do it for you. People work for people. They don't work for companies. Please remember that statement. People work for you. They work for people, not for companies, not for organizations. Keep that in mind. And they're going to perform at a high level, a mediocre level, or an underperforming level based on you and how you're motivating, inspiring, guiding them. To improve your leadership skills, you need to invest time in understanding your people. You need to understand their aspirational goals, You need to understand what their strengths are. Are there areas of growth that you could guide them into? And helping align their goals with the organization's goals with your goals. And just to make sure that's not confusing, let me give an example of understanding aspirations. As I coach and develop emerging leaders, one of the first steps I ask them to do is get to know their people. They need to have a good professional relationship with their team members. You should have a relationship where you know what each team member wants in their life. What are their goals? What are their career goals? What are their personal goals? Or are they fine doing what they're doing right now? And they're going to be fine doing that for a long time. But I bet they want to do it at the best level they can. Understand where they stand, or whatever their duties are. Looking at whatever opportunities may present themselves within your organization or company. Any areas of responsibility that they're interested in being involved in. And if they have higher goals in life and career, you're the guide to that. You're the person responsible for helping get them started on their journey. And that is their why. You have to understand their why. What are their career goals? What are their life goals? And when we talk about aligning goals, a critical part of this alignment is knowing what your employees want to get out of life. So you can tie your goals, your standards, the company's vision or mission, and help them understand how what they do impacts that, so they have a feeling of purpose. This alignment transforms individual tasks that they're told to do into a purpose-driven action where they understand what's in it for them. And that requires open communication. You have to build trust, mutual respect. Respect is something that's earned, not given with your title. And most importantly, you have to make sure your each and every team member feels valued and understood. And as a result of all that, team members are not just working because they have to, but because they genuinely are inspired and driven to achieve a vision, or they want to do it. In contrast, the transactional nature of management, leadership taps into their deeper emotional and intellectual motivations, compelling them to strive for excellence out of genuine commitment to you. People work for people. And the better you are at leading people, the harder and better they will perform for you. So let me wrap this portion of it up in summary. Leaders, managers, they both play a crucial role within an organization. They possess distinct qualities and perform different functions, but leaders focus on inspiring and guiding others towards the vision and goals. They build strong relationships and create a very positive culture. That may be a little abstract for some, but we'll get deeper into that as to the how-tos and what that looks like. Now, why are you here? You're likely here because you want to improve your leadership skills, excuse me, because having strong leadership skills enhances your performance, whether you're a business owner, an executive, a manager. And it does so in several crucial ways. Here are some of the ways. Effective leaders create and align vision and direction. I just talked about it just a little bit. You have to repeat, ensure understanding, talk about it a lot, what the goal is, what their goal is, tie it to the company's goal. figure out what motivates them, and help work them towards this common goal. Employee engagement. That's a widely used term now. But effective leaders help build and nurture high-performing teams. And you do so by understanding the strengths and the aspirations of your team members. And that fosters a sense of purpose and engagement. And engaged employees are much more committed to their work and contribute to the success. That commitment contributes to a higher level of success for the organization. Leaders have to have strong decision-making skills. You're often faced with complex decisions that can impact a lot of things. As you improve your leadership skills, your decision-making will come along with that. It'll enable you to make well-informed and confident decisions, because you'll learn to consider various perspectives. That's many managers unknowingly think all of the decision-making is on their shoulders. And it's not. Doesn't have to be. It can be, doesn't have to be. Because when you start with the best practice of collaborating with your team members, seeking their input, their experience, their opinions on things, that creates a pool of collective knowledge of which you can make a better, more informed decision. Now, if it's an emergency, no, you're not going to bring everybody together and take an hour and figure that out. You're going to have to make some quick decisions sometimes. But if it's something that is driving your team or your company towards a goal, make the time to get different perspectives, create that pool of knowledge so that you're well informed and your team will be bought in to whatever you decide on. That's the cool part. Now you're bringing their hearts and minds into that decision. They'll understand why you're doing what you're doing. And that why is critical. Often, lack of buy-in, lack of commitment to getting the job done is driven by a team or a team member simply not understanding why we're doing this. It is a huge game changer. Sounds so simple, but it's often left out. Why are we doing this? The information comes downstream from the manager. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to change. This is what I need you to do. And naturally, do you feel like you need to tell them why? Yes, you should, but it doesn't come naturally. So keep in mind, it's really important to communicate the why and what's in it for them. That changes the game of performance and gets their hearts and minds into a space of improved work performance. Another thing managers and leaders have to be very good at is managing change, and leadership is where that change becomes smooth and frictionless. Change is inevitable. If you're a startup, it's going to be changing every day. If you're a more mature legacy type company, you're still going to have changes. Changes in people, changes in processes, changes in budgets. Highly effective leaders are very good at leading their teams through these times of uncertainty or transition. There's often pivots that you have to make or improvements needed. And with strong leadership skills, you'll know why to communicate the need for the change, the why for the change, getting down into a deeper level of understanding with your folks. Then it allows you to address any concerns. If they have any objections to it or don't fully understand it, it allows them time to ask you questions. Often the reason why teams don't buy in, team members don't buy into change, is they don't understand why. And certainly they believe that without further knowledge, that this change is unnecessary. It doesn't need to happen. I'm just fine doing what I'm doing. Why fix what's broken? They need to understand why we're changing this and allow them time to ask questions. And that allows them to smooth out their buy-in, to gain buy-in. And it benefits both you and them. They're less frustrated, you're less frustrated. And I know everybody on this webinar today has faced that challenge, that you've changed something within your organization, some expectation, some approach, some process, and some members buy right in and some passively, aggressively just choose not to do it. And you're scratching your head. Well, it's only because you told them what to do, not why to do it. Keep that in mind. As I've alluded to earlier, your best leaders are very effective at building strong professional relationships through great communication. You must excel in communication with both your team, your peers, your boss. You have to be able to create plans and strategies, then be able to convey your goals, your strategies, your actions, be able to convey the progress clearly and authentically, and building relationships all along the way. This leads to a mutually beneficial outcome for all. You do not have to be outgoing. You don't have to be gregarious to be a good communicator. You just have to understand the process, the elements that create good communication, effective communication. And that is a very learnable skill. You do not have to be someone who is publicly speaking. You only have to be able to convey complex or difficult to understand ideas into simple, understandable steps. It's breaking it down. But the hard part is understanding that you have to do it. We often skip that part. Leads to less than desirable outcomes. Talked about this earlier. Your great leaders, your favorite leaders, the ones that really get ahead in life, they keep employee development at a very high priority. And development takes on a lot of different definitions. There are skills, and then there are traits. Skills are teachable. Traits have to be born into somebody. I can teach somebody how to adopt a new software or to take a new approach or learn a new job, what buttons to push. But I can't teach them work ethic. I can't teach them teamwork. I can't teach them integrity. So understand, as you're selecting people to work on, make sure that they have the core traits they need that's going to make them successful. And we're going to talk about that more later. But if you're constantly thinking about how you can help your team members get ahead, learn more, take more off your plate, which is an awesome byproduct of this, if you're not doing it, you don't realize how it strengthens the bond, the relationship between you and your team. And it improves loyalty and retention dramatically. I want to give another example of this. Every interview I conduct, there's 2 questions I ask every single time, and I have for decades. And I do it for a couple reasons that we don't need to go into here, but I ask this: who's the best boss you ever had? And I want to hear their response, but I got to tell you, that's not the most important question I ask. It's a setup to the next question, which I'll get to. But almost universally, 100% of the time, as they describe their best boss, they describe somebody who listened to them, took them under their wings, mentored them, trained them, gave them opportunities, trusted them. someone they respected, someone who was transparent in their communication, someone who understood their mistakes and helped them learn from those mistakes. They nurtured this person. They gave them opportunities. And through that nurturing and opportunities, that person grew. And that became the best boss they ever had. And that should always be a goal for anybody in leadership, anybody in management. Am I doing the things that if interviewed, they would describe me as the best boss they ever had? Flip side of that, who's the worst boss you ever had? That's the question. And I ask that for a couple reasons. But universally, the response is almost the same again. What I really ask that for is, how bad are they going to trash this person? I want to see how negative they are, how worked up, how emotional they get around this person. Have they been able to leave that behind? But the best boss is almost 100% of the time described by micromanager, barking orders, poor communication skills, didn't care about us, never listened to us, had very little interaction with us, never told us where we stood, almost 100% of the time. Now, I don't think for a minute that boss that they just described wants to be viewed that way. I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to go make sure I disappoint everybody today. I'm going to be the worst boss anybody had. Nobody does that unless they're a psychopath. What they are missing is they have one gear, they have one tool, they have one approach. They've never exposed themselves to any other way, and they certainly have not received the feedback as to how they're respected or viewed. So they go about their career, they go about their day-to-day duties, deploying it in the only way they know how. And if it's not working, if they have poor performance, high turnover, a lot of frustration, they blame it on the employees. You know how many times I hear, boy, it's tough to find good people today. You know what? I'm going to give my age away. I started managing people in the 70s, through the 80s, through the 90s, the early 2000s. You know what? We've been saying that for 40 years. It's always been hard to find good people. Maybe a little harder today. I got to grant you that. It's a little more difficult today. But the best bosses hang on to their best people, and they deal with their underperformers. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. These bosses they describe as their worst boss, they just don't know any better. They just don't know any better. And I believe that they would want to, if they knew that they needed to, take the steps that you all are taking to start getting some direction and commit to some learning. Now, here's a big why for you, or it should be. Some of you may be familiar with this approach or this statement. It's the transformational triangle of change. Here's what it's all about. The transformational triangle of change shows that this powerful relationship between improving yourself, improving your leadership skills, how that impacts positively your team's performance, and thus the company's performance. That's the triangle. Improve you, that cascades to the team. Then with their improvements, that cascades to the organization's improvement. That's the transformational triangle. Any amount of improved leadership leads to increased team members' motivation, engagement, productivity. It's a super big positive. However little you improve, it has a direct ROI. You don't have to be perfect right away, and you can't be. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes discomfort. You do not grow staying comfortable. So if you're really committed to becoming an improved leader, you're going to have to embrace discomfort, things you don't want to do. You will talk yourself out of doing things. And that's where you have to catch yourself. You have to have the mindset to catch yourself and make yourself do it. Only person who can control your thoughts is you. Studies have shown, here again is a why. Studies have shown that companies with strong leaders experience significant positive outcomes, no duh, but here's the quantitative outcome of that. According to research by Gallup, organizations with highly engaged teams led by very effective leaders achieve a 21% higher profitability. Pretty impressive ROI. There was a study by Deloitte, and that revealed that companies with effective leadership and effective leadership development programs are 2.3 times more likely to outperform their competitors. That's a motivator. And as team performance improves, it just ripples down through the organization, but it starts with you. So by investing in leadership development, you'll achieve remarkable success. You'll maintain and improve competitive edge in a very difficult business landscape. And to go on, and I know I'm driving this way too hard, that's what's in it for you. Strong leadership skills are game changers. By the way, here's your sign. If you are consistently facing people issues or firefighting problems a lot, by continuously honing your leadership abilities and driving this positive change I'm talking about, minimize these day-to-day distractions. Improving your leadership skills is fire prevention versus firefighting. That's one of the big what's in it for you. You'll go home less stressed, less frustrated, feeling like you accomplished a lot today. Your projects will receive the needed amount of time to complete. You'll spend fewer hours at work. And you will work under less pressure and with more confidence. And I'm going to give you a warning. This is, I think, the second warning today. You'll not have much to go home and complain about. If you improve your leadership skills, things improve to where you just don't have much to complain about anymore. You won't go home and have to complain. What you'll be able to do is go home and share all the great things you accomplished today, all the great things you did, and maybe even some of the nice things that were said about your guidance and leadership. That's a huge what's in it for you. So let me sum this part up. Key challenge that faces all emerging and learning leaders is balancing this management and leadership approach. You need both, but if you're only using one, you're missing out on effectiveness. So understanding, striking the right balance is going to be essential for you as a leader to impact your organization positively. And my goal with you is to give you some improved insight as to how to transition between the two roles. So through this next segment of the webinar, I'm going to share some best practices. Now we're getting down into the meat of things. It'll allow you to get some clarity of what's needed to navigate your journey to improve leadership. And armed with this knowledge, you'll be better equipped to embrace your journey and thus create positive changes with you, your team, and your organization. It's not a destination. It's not a place you get to and you say, I'm here. It's a continuous self-improvement, learning and growth. You'll never know it all. We all know that. But you, in order to be the most effective leader you can be, you must have the willingness to challenge yourself and step out of your comfort zones. There it is again. And embrace new approaches, perspectives, other people's perspectives, other people's ways of doing things. Your way may not be the best way, may not be the only way. Open yourself up to others' opinions. And also, leadership improvement is not confined to just your professional life. Believe me, it extends to all aspects of your existence. Your personal relationships, community involvement, etc. A lot of positive outcomes. So let's talk a little bit more about how to successfully move from manager to leader. This may sound a little strange. I'm going to hopefully make sense of it later. A leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. So understanding yourself. Who do you want to be as a leader? It's precisely just that simple, but it's very difficult. The best you can hope for is become the best possible version of yourself. Understand and leverage your strengths. Understand and mitigate your weaknesses and maybe your character flaws. We all have them. Until personality transplants become available, we're all going to have to learn to work with what we have and then seek to grow and improve on our strengths and mitigate our weaknesses. Know your strengths, improve those. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? If you're not getting regular feedback about that, we need to work on that. You may understand the outcomes of some of your weaknesses, but how do I change that? You may understand the outcomes of some of your strengths. How do I make those even better? There's a lot of different ways, and we're going to talk about some of those ways, but let's do this. I'm going to give you here's my first free offer today. I'm going to send everybody an email at the conclusion of this webinar. There's going to be several free offers in there. And one of them is going to be a free DISC assessment. And if you haven't taken a DISC assessment, it's a tool. It's a widely used and very accurate tool. It takes you about 15 minutes to complete. It's amazing how accurate it is. But it helps you clearly identify and understand your behavior style, your communication style, your strengths, your motivators, and your weaknesses. And from that, you can start building and more clearly understanding how to leverage yourself, your own personal abilities to become an improved leader, and to identify your shortcomings and how to avoid or account for them. And I've probably submitted north of 1,000 DISC assessments. I've been using it for over 20 years. Everybody, to a person that I've sat down and discussed their DISC with them, has found that it is invaluable. It's invaluable insight to you and your ability. And I'm glad to be able to offer this to you for attending this webinar. And I encourage you to take the 15 minutes to complete it. It is a great starting point or a point of understanding for you to start directing with better planning and purpose where you want to head and how you're going to get there. And once those results are back, you and one of our coaches will schedule a consultation to go through it with you. And doing that is very important. Do not skip that part. You must have this expert with you to discuss the report, or you'll simply miss the value. Reading the report is a lot of fun. Showing it to someone at home, your friend, your spouse, that's all fun. They'll say, yeah, it's you, but it's not very valuable. Having that discussion with your coach for free is the value. It's how you'll be able to gain the deeper insight and get clear direction for your leadership journey. No cost, no commitment. We do a lot of them every week for 100% free. That's one of our ways of giving back. We love to be able to do that. That gives us self-satisfaction. Now, let's move on to some of the hows. This is the best part. I'm going to share with you some of the best practices you need. It's not all the best practices. We could take all day, if not all year, to get through all the best practices. I just want to share some of my favorites in the time that is allowed. There are many more. I've written about them. I've podcasted on them. There's my plug for the Business Mechanic podcast. I'll give you a link to that in the email we send out after. Let's start with this one. Humility, being humble. That's a superpower. You all may be familiar with Jim Collins, very widely read author. Back in the 80s, when he was conducting research for his book, Good to Great, he found that the best leaders displayed a combination of humility and fierce resolve. And he coined the term for this powerful combination as level 5 leadership. You ever heard of that? Comes from that book. But what is humility? What is that exactly? Ken Blanchard, another one of my favorite authors, defines it as not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. I'm going to repeat that. Not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So here's some terms to embrace just that. Here's how you become a little more humble. Keep these in mind. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's okay to not know. I need help. Very often, because of our self-esteems, our egos, we don't ask for help. We can't admit when we're wrong. Have a tough time saying I'm sorry when you make a mistake. The goal is never have to make that statement, I'm sorry. But it's okay. That's being humble. Your team will not respect you less because you say those words. They'll respect you more. Counterintuitive, but I promise you, that's the way it works. And when in doubt, practicing any of these is a great place to start. Also, and a key point to embrace, you are only as good as your people. You're only as good as your people. The quality of your people, the motivation, the engagement of your people, has an exact direct correlation to your success. You're only as good as that. You need to have people you can trust. You must hire the best person you can for the job. And you need to create the best culture you can for those best people. Going back to Good to Great again, Jim Collins shared that executives who succeeded at creating great companies discovered that if we get the right people, and I'm betting a bunch of you have heard this, now you know where it came from. If you get the right people on the bus, those people in the right seats, and then you get the wrong people off the bus, then we'll figure out how to take it someplace great. And we'll delve into that a little bit. Most people only remember the first part of that adage. However, I cannot stress the importance of this enough. This is a very important and often overlooked, misunderstood, certainly is never acted upon, rarely acted upon. Removing people from their jobs that are unsuited for that job. It's very unpleasant. It's very time consuming. It creates a lot of risk in many people's minds. It doesn't have to. Some people feel like it's more trouble than it's worth. They're trying to protect their self-esteem. They're avoiding confrontation. And many managers, many executives tolerate underperformance far longer than they should. I see it so often. And if we can get that thing, that one thing, embraced and acted upon, it's amazing how it opens a can of awesomeness. What you don't know is by not dealing and removing these underperformers, it's destroying the way your team respects you. And I think down deep, most of you know that. Because this underperformer is affecting all of your other team members too. It's affecting you and it's affecting everybody else working with you. In fact, studies have shown that managers spend about 70% of their day dealing with the issues of these underperformers. Think about that. Think about your day-to-day duties and where you're spending time. You remove the underperformers, the people who are not doing a very good job, you either get them better or you get them gone. You're paid to overcome problems, not live with them. But believe me, your team is well aware of this poor performer, and it drags them down. So not only are you getting the outcomes of this poor performer from their own actions or inactions, it's dragging down the rest of your team. And the whole time, unknowingly, it's eroding their respect for you. Your team often gets fixated on your lack of addressing this poor performer. And they're standing around, they're talking, they're gossiping with each other. When are they going to deal with this? They know it's frustrating to them. So anytime you have someone in a key position who cannot or will not perform, and believe me, if you take the proper performance management steps, you give them the proper tools and training, then they're making a choice. They're making a choice not to perform. So they're making a choice to not work for you anymore. They must vacate that seat. And I'm not advocating firing a bunch of people, but you have to identify the ones that need to be removed, because you have no idea until they're gone how they're impacting your performance and your team's performance. Face the fact, you can't save people. You shouldn't try to rescue people. You should practice empathy and you should offer help. But certainly when some of your team members are going through rough patches, that happens. You need to have a time where you can tastefully overlook. Everyone deserves a second chance, but not a third and not a fourth, and so on. Let me take it back to the positive side of this, back to the right people. I also encourage you to benchmark your company's roles using the DISC assessment. During your consultation with one of our coaches, we'll show you how to use a tool that's in the DISC assessment called the Success Insights Wheel. And that will be able to allow you to pinpoint which DISC profile will be effective in all the various roles in your organization. So if you're promoting, transferring, or hiring someone, you include DISC as part of your hiring or promotion process, and you're making a better decision. Remember when I was talking about making great decisions? That's one of the steps. And it'll also tell you which profiles will struggle and why. And if you have somebody struggling, we can tell you why. And maybe you can repurpose that person. Maybe they're just in the wrong seat. Maybe there's a better seat for them, and you just don't understand that. We've done this for years and years. We can help you. We've been on the front lines. We've been in the trenches. We've got the battle scars to show it. And we've used this tool for decades. We can help you utilize it to be a better leader. And while we're on that topic, because again, no matter what business, we're in the people business, and the better your people are, the better you're going to perform. You need to embrace the fact that a big part of that, and I don't say this lightly, this is not an exaggeration. Hiring is let me say that again without my tongue being tied. Hiring is 90% of the battle. Hiring is 90% of the battle. Way too many managers, decision makers, rely on a terrifying combination of their gut and their hope and their optimism when it comes to finding talent. You must invest your time, maybe even money, and to make sure that the people you're hiring are the right people for your job and your culture and for you. You can't ask a chicken to climb a tree. You want someone who can climb a tree, you need to find a squirrel. What do you need in that job? We need to teach you how to interview to understand whether they're a good fit for that job, or you need to take the formal training to learn how to properly interview. Here's the biggest part of that mistake that is made. They hire for skills. They hire for experience. That's just not enough. I've never in 40 years fired somebody because of their experience. I fired them because they just couldn't do the job. And it was something that was untrainable with them, that they weren't coachable. They didn't have the work ethic. They didn't have enough initiative. All things I can't train somebody on. That's what made them fail. So experience is not going to determine their success. Who they are as a human is going to determine their success. Get that part right, and your job just became infinitely easier. There's an organization out there called Know Your Strengths. Strengths Finder, that's another assessment for a different purpose. Phil Olson, who is the head of that company, gives great advice. Find excellent performers, define their qualities, hunt for those. That's the benchmarking. Understand what's going to be successful in your organization, and then seek those qualities. Ask about those qualities. Have your questions designed. It's behavior-based interviewing. If anybody's interested in that, reach out to me. I'm going to send my contact information. I can set you up with a free course on this. Understanding that part is the key to all of it. Don't hire for experience. That's nice. The must is you have to hire the right human. And then think about, they love us. Well, we love them. And can they do the job? Does their traits, their behaviors, their untrainable abilities, are they at a level that's going to be a high performer, an average performer, or an underperformer? They can do the job. Can they do the job the way we want it done? Or think about this. Can they find even better ways to do the job? That would be awesome. So hire the right human for the role, not their experience. This can all be learned, and we'd be happy to provide you the course to do that. Get hiring right. Most hiring decision makers have never been formally trained in this crucial skill, and they're creating their own problems. It's the rare manager I come across that knows how to do this. Also keep in mind, I'm changing gears now. What got you here really won't get you there. What does that mean? Marshall Goldsmith wins the award for the best book, and I just named the title. What got you here won't get you there. Very true words. Most people, maybe yourself included, but most people are promoted to manage others because they have outstanding individual contributions. That does not predict whether they have management skills or leadership skills. The next move from doing their job to managing individuals requires a new set of skills and learning. The vast majority of managers never have that opportunity, maybe you included. That's why you're here. You're looking for an opportunity to learn. It's an entirely different set of skills. You want to be better. You're here. I'm going to start you on your journey. When leaders move from managing people, that's one set of skills. If you move from managing direct reports to managing managers or even managing businesses. It's a whole nother set of skills that need to be learned. When people get promoted, they often believe that they can rely on what they've been doing to be successful. And in fact, those things will get in the way. Absolutely get in the way of achieving your success because you're too controlling. It's your way or the highway. You're the only one who can do it as well as anybody else. You tend to avoid delegation. And that's where the wheels come off. 80% of new managers fail in the first 18 months. However, most don't understand that they failed because a lot of managers don't get any feedback, and it allows them to start making excuses as to why they're failing. But usually the spotlight needs to be on them because they didn't get the training. And you also, as a leader, need to define reality. Leadership is an art. There's some skills, but there's also some art to it. And people need to be able to, with very distinct clarity, be able to communicate where we are, where we're going, and what's going to get us there. And that may seem very obvious, but what often trips up people, surprises many leaders, is the level of constant repetition of those things over and over until you're bored with it. If you're bored repeating your strategy and your goals, your vision, your values, if you're not bored, you're probably not talking about it enough. That's counterintuitive again. I don't want to be boring everybody. Believe me, it's very important. They need to have that in their face constantly, either in writing or words or reminders. People are very distractible. And you need, in order to display yourself as a good leader, you need to be able to redirect their focus. Don't allow them to drift. Don't allow them to creep off the goal. And finally, because leading is hard, and the more responsibility you have, the more you care, the harder it is. Get help. Anything worth doing is worth getting help for. Leaders, as they learn, there's very few people who were born with natural leadership skills. It's all learned. And you need a strong right hand. You need to cultivate mentors, guidance, have a network, maybe get a coach that can help you tap into what you should be doing and give you feedback. It requires all that. And here's some key steps. One, you need to understand you becoming your best self and the different leadership styles that you can design yourself for. Research the different leadership styles and see which one works best for you, and then use that as a guide. Remember to always build strong relationships. Work on that effective communication. Build rapport, build trust. In order to be trusted, we have to grant trust. Having a friendly, professional relationship with your team members is crucial. Understanding their goals, just enough about what's happening in their lives. You need to be approachable. You need to be accessible. You need to manage by walking around. They need to have access to you. And if you're trying to stay in your seat all day and manage, you're never going to be a great leader. You need to be empathetic. And you need to gather all the perspectives you can in whatever you're doing. Create that pool of collective knowledge. And in order to do that, you need to master the art of active listening. Best leaders lead with their ears. It's hard for us. It's not natural for many of us. But creating the ability, developing the ability to truly listen to your team, to your boss, without interrupting or jumping to conclusions, You master that, and you have now got a new superpower. It's amazing, but it doesn't come naturally. It does not come naturally. And one other thing I'm going to offer you today is I'm going to put in there a link to my book, A Roadmap to Difficult Conversations. It's all about what we just talked about. It gives you the architecture, the steps, the mindsets that you'll need in order to create the ability to listen, embrace, and really get to the root cause of things. The next thing you need to make sure you're doing is provide constructive feedback. Your feedback plays a crucial role in your team's growth. And it needs to be timely. I advocate that your team members each get a feedback session with you once every 30 days. A lot of people say, whoa, 30 days, that's a lot of time. Well, if you do it right, if you do it the right way, it's a 30-minute conversation. And you're listening more than you're talking. Again, we can talk about all that if you're interested in learning how to do it. It's a cool way. It's a very effective way. An approach I've been using for a couple decades now. It is amazing, and it makes you so much more respected because you're framing this feedback around growth and development and success around them. And let me give you the why behind this. Gallup, who is one of my favorite providers of information, in their 2021 research, they show that about 26% of employees in the United States, 26%, strongly agree that they receive regular feedback. Wow. That's pretty light. Obviously, that means a significant majority of employees are getting no feedback. So how are they going to improve their performance? How do they know how they're doing? Very often they want to fix it. They want to do a good job. They come to work to do a good job. Their manager is insulating them from that information because very often these managers do not know how to deliver difficult conversations. Read the book. Because providing this consistent and constructive feedback is absolutely crucial to earning their respect, engagement, their development. Because the lack of feedback will absolutely decrease employee engagement. It'll decrease productivity, and it certainly affects the level of trust they give for you. In fact, back to Gallup, in their State of the Global Workplace report, get this is staggering. Only 13% of employees are engaged at work. Engaged meaning they want to work there. 50% stated that they would leave tomorrow if a better offer came along. And why? It's because of their boss. It's 100% of the time because of their boss. And one of the big reasons why their boss is so ineffective for them, their leader, it's poor leadership, is because of this lack of regular and constructive feedback. Where do I stand? How can I get better? Because research has shown that when employees receive little or no feedback, engagement drops to a meager 4%. However, engagement increases significantly when they're getting this regular feedback. Remember, I've talked about getting them to want to do things. But if you're giving them regular feedback, you get up to 6 times more engagement than no feedback. 6x. But you have to be comfortable doing it. You need to know how to do it. Read the book. Take you an hour. Productivity is directly impacted by lack of feedback. Another survey from Clear Company. 105% of high growth organizations agree that regular feedback is crucial to driving their team's performance. However, that same survey found that 75% of employees felt that they could be more productive if they knew what they were doing was right or wrong. Huge gap. that we're not providing them. And this all leads to one of my favorite topics, understanding the emotional bank account, the heart of your people, the minds of your people, the emotional bank account. That's a metaphor that was introduced by Stephen Covey. Many of you know that name, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it describes the emotional connection and trust within relationships, particularly in the context of leadership. Just like a financial bank account, the emotional bank account represents the emotional reserves we build up with our team members through positive interaction, trust-building actions, and showing empathy and genuine care. And as long as you're making enough deposits into this account that enhances the rapport, the loyalty, the bond between you and your team members, and on the other hand, if all you're doing is telling them what they're doing wrong, you're making withdrawals all the time, or you block them from getting any positive deposits, that's where the conflict comes. That's where the lack of support comes. That's where the insensitivity to your needs comes. Maintaining this healthy emotional bank account is 100% crucial to be an effective leader. And to do that, I've hit on all of these. Requires active listening, recognition and appreciation, positive feedback. I catch you doing it right. I'm managing by walking around. I'm seeing you doing it right. I'm telling you, I recognize that you're doing something well. Thank you. Just expressing some gratitude, recognition. They see it's one of those huge emotional human needs is that somebody sees that I'm working hard and appreciates it. Give them that. And when they need support, they need empathy, you're giving them that. That's the emotional bank account. And to avoid some of these withdrawals, avoid micromanagement. Nobody likes micromanagers, including you. It leads to a lot of disengagement, disempowerment, and eroding trust. Talked about this earlier, but you also need to make sure that if there's conflicts or there are problems, that you address them quickly. The closer to the time that it happens, the better, but address issues quickly, constructively, and with power. Because if you're not dealing with problems, that leads to significant withdrawals. And then you have to be consistent. Consistency in leadership. They need to know who's going to show up for work every day. You need to self-regulate yourself. Understand that you're on stage all day, every day. I describe it like you've got a documentary film crew following you around all day, every day. Your people are watching you. You don't recognize it. You don't realize it, but they're watching and hearing everything you do and say all day long. And if you're not saying it directly to them, they're hearing it from somebody else. Fairness comes into play. If you're treating somebody better than them, emotional withdrawal. But they're following you. And believe me, they see and hear everything you're doing. And they're judging you. They're judging you. Their level of respect will be granted based on what they're seeing and hearing. You need to be consistent. You need to be fair. You need to be firm, but you need to be fair. You need to be fair, transparent, and reliable. Do what you say you're going to do. Never don't follow through. Take care of the problems for them. So let's start wrapping this up. And just so you'll know, I'm going to, at the end of this, I'll stay on for a little while and give anybody that wants to participate in a Q&A session, or again, through the email that we're going to send you afterwards, there's a link to schedule a time to speak with me. If you want to talk about your individual situation, some of your challenges, maybe get some feedback on how you can start transitioning from a manager to a leader, the steps you need to take, some of the tools you need to use, reach out to me. That's what all this is about. I'm here to help. So we've talked about the transition from manager to leader. We've talked about developing your leadership style. We've talked about building strong relationships, having highly effective communication, empowering, developing, motivating your team, your ability to lead through change and uncertainty, the emotional bank account. People are everything. It's 90% of the battle is to hire great people, but you have to understand what great people you need. So, we can help you with all the hows. Be happy to do it. If you start incorporating these key takeaways and a bunch of others that are in our toolbox, your leadership approach will elevate. Your capabilities will soar. And that will give you a lot more confidence, success, leading to your organization's success, the transformational triangle of change. And remember, it's all about continuous improvement, getting 1%, 2% better every day over a very long period of time. This is all things you have to learn, deploy, practice. It's all about practicing. You can't read it in a book and then be a better leader. You have to go out and deploy these things that you learn, start practicing them, and you won't be perfect. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. Learn from those. It's okay. It's you being humble, showing your humility. So wrap this up. Here's the pitch. If you're ready to elevate your leadership skills, transform your business, your organization into one that is much more successful, reach out to Results-Driven Leadership. We offer groundbreaking leadership development, and what sets us apart from everybody else, it's very simple. Our trainers and coaches are not just trained trainers. We're not reading from somebody else's book. We're all former frontline executives who have been in the battles. We've been in the trenches, and we've emerged victorious with the real world experience we'll share with you. So think about learning from a battle-tested leader who's faced the same challenges you're encountering and have the battle scars to prove it. We'll give you practical insights, battle-proven strategies, so you can be more confident, more effective, and help you learn the right way. We've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Let the numbers speak for themselves. Over 90% of the leaders who participate in our program have reported back significant improvement, especially in their decision-making capabilities. 21% higher profitability in the companies we work with. And the best part, none of this is cookie cutter. It's all designed for you. The expected ROI, return on your investment, is $4.53 for every dollar you invest. That's the ROI you'll get. Our clients love us. They keep us around for a very long time. We'd love to make one of you our client. So with us, you'll gain some wisdom, learn from our battle-tested leaders with real-world strategies that work with a huge ROI. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all very much for attending today. You're going to receive a recording of this, along with a PDF of a PowerPoint that went along with this for reference. And in the email is our contact information. Visit our website, rdltraining.com. That's Romeo Delta Lima training.com. I'll also put a link to our podcast in there, The Business Mechanic. It's a top 100 podcast in the business and leadership space. We're very proud of all the listeners we have, and we love doing it. So you'll also get a free DISC assessment and consultation. We will give you one free coaching session with one of our seasoned veterans, and I'll give you a link for a free copy of my book, A Roadmap to Difficult Conversations. I'll wrap it up there. Thank you all very much for coming. I will allow for any Q&A if anybody would like to join me at this point. So I'll open it up. All right. We'll call that a day then. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your week and appreciate your attendance.